Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our February the 3rd Community Town Hall meeting. The Town Hall meeting this evening is to talk about the middle school redistricting plans and the discussion that we've been having with the board and in the district over the last number of months. Tonight's meeting, tonight's Town Hall is an opportunity for board members to listen and to hear and to get direct feedback and perspective from members of our community. This meeting is special because we are intending to focus directly on families with children who have IEPs or 504s. We had a community-wide town hall last week. We focused on the overall, the big picture. And tonight we want to focus just specifically on IEP and families that have children with IEPs and 504s and talk about some of the nuances that are directly related to those families. So we're going to go through a little bit of introduction to begin with this evening. Most people I know, I'm Joe Malash, and I'm the very proud superintendent of the Cherry Hill School District. I'd like to introduce the other panelists who are on camera with me this evening. First, from the Board of Education, Mr. Ben Ovadia, who is our board president. Mr. Ovadia will serve as our facilitator during the course of the evening when we get back and forth into the dialogue. Also from the board, Ms. Jennifer Fleischer, one of our newer board members. Jen Fleischer is with us this evening. And then also from the board, Dr. Benjamin Rood. Dr. Rood is also one of our newest board members. And then joining us in a little bit, oh, she's on. Fourth board member who's on with us this evening is Ms. Kim Friedel. Ms. Kim Friedel has been on the board for a few years, most recently serving as the board vice president during the part of the 2021, or just 2021, 2020, 2021 school year, the 2021, 2022 school year from January through December. So those are our four board members that are with us this evening. We also have with us our Director of Special Ed, Ms. Caitlin Mallory, who you'll hear from in a few minutes. Our Assistant Superintendent for Compliance, Equity, and Student Services, Mrs. LaKoya Wethington, is with us this evening. And then three of our pupil services supervisors who focus specifically in the area of special ed, Ms. Trina Ragsdale, Mr. Mark Wisely, and Dr. Shilpa Deve. We have a number of other folks from the district who are with us who will serve as resources. Ms. Linda King, who's our Director of Transportation, is on with us. Some of our middle school principals, Dr. Neil Birdie, will be on with us this evening, as will Mr. Augie Ramos. Mr. George Guy is going to try to join us at some point. I know he had a conflict with another meeting this evening. And then from our technology department, Mr. Mark Plavinsky and Mr. Marcus Holman are on the line. They are keeping us on and running the Zoom for us this evening. And then as always, Mrs. Barbara Wilson, who's our public information officer, is on with us this evening, and she will be serving as our timekeeper. So as I mentioned in the very beginning, this has been an ongoing discussion within the district. There was a formal presentation was made to the Board of Education on December 7th, back before the winter break. And then there's been a lot of discussion within the community. There's been some discussion among the board members at our board meetings in January. And as I said, we had the full-scale town hall meeting last week, and then this evening to have the town hall to discuss the specific focus on families with children who have IEPs and families with children who have 504s. We expect that the board will continue to engage in a full dialogue on Tuesday evening at our next Board of Education meeting on February the 8th. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Caitlin Mallory, our Director of Special Education. And Caitlin is going to do a brief presentation just to make sure that everybody is familiar with the same information. So let me get this pulled up for you, Ms. Mallory.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Excited for the opportunity to be here and take time to focus specifically on students in special education and students with 504 plans as it relates to the different options for the middle school redistricting committee. I was a member of the committee, a stakeholder from the very beginning, so grateful for that opportunity to have ongoing discussion as it relates to the special education department. So Just a little snapshot, the redistricting committee was charged with finding creative redistricting options, equitably redistricting middle schools for the start of the 23-24 academic year, and report findings and recommendations to the board by December 2021, which many of you know did already take place. This is just an overview of the different options, the 5 options presented by the committee that were considered. I do want to start with a bit of a disclaimer regarding special education programs and student enrollment for the 23-24 school year. Certainly each year our enrollments change, our program numbers change. So there's slight difficulty with determining exactly what our numbers are going to look like essentially 2 school years from now. So that could have an impact on all the options considered for student services. As programs expand, there's also more opportunity for inclusion for our students. So it's a good thing as well. We prioritize continuums of programs wherever possible to ensure smooth transitions between grade levels and less disruption for our students with special needs in schools. Students with 504s, as it relates to the different options presented, will be able to access their accommodations anywhere that they are. All of our teachers and staff are responsible for implementing 504 accommodations, and that would be the expectation, whichever direction we go with the plan. All right, so taking a look at option 1, some of the strengths we tried to pull, we tried to do exactly what the committee did by pulling out different strengths and weaknesses. I did a little mini SWOT analysis as well for special education. So looking at option 1, it would allow for lower enrollment. The lower enrollment at Beck would allow for more space for special programs. As you can see, with Rosa being over capacity, it would be a weakness because it would be difficult to have specific special education programs at Rosa. Opportunities would provide a continuum of program for students at Beck and Carusi. That's something that we really value in special education. So our students have less disruption as they get older, as they switch grades. And one of the threats of this option 1 is that there would be very limited inclusivity of students in our special programs. Taking a look at option 2, some of the strengths we considered would be that if there was lower enrollment at Rosa, it would allow space for additional special programs. Carusi, a weakness is that Carusi is almost at capacity, and it would be definitely a challenge to house special education programs there, let alone a variety of special programs. Opportunities for option 2, a continuum of programs for students at Rosa. And one of the threats for option 2, again, would be very limited for inclusivity for our programs at Beck and Rosa. Looking at option 3, one of the strengths we determined would be that if we had a lower enrollment at Rosa in this particular scenario, it would allow space for a variety of special programs, which would allow for more inclusivity and a different culture in the school for sure. Weaknesses, with high enrollment of Beck, it will limit the ability to have special programs. Opportunities for option 3, we would see a continuum at Rosa with the programs that we would be able to house there. And then looking at threats, with more programs at Rosa, we would see that the programs are not equitable across the middle schools. And that's something that we are looking to do as we make decisions going forward. Option 4, I want to point out, is the option that presents a 6th grade center. One of the strengths for special education would be that every single program that the district houses currently would be at Rosa for 6th grade. One of the weaknesses is that Beck will be limited for new programs and continuum due to space. An opportunity would be more inclusive community at Rosa due to the number of programs there. And threats, students with special needs will have an additional transition to 7th grade. Changes in schools present much more difficulty for certain populations of students. We would have to be proactive in supporting this change with district transition programs, open houses, visits from Rosa, etc. Finally, taking a look at the strengths for option 5. We would have lower numbers at Rosa and Beck, which would allow for more programs. A weakness would be Carusi at capacity limits, which would limit options for special program placements. Opportunities with option 5, 2 middle schools would be more inclusive of all students in special education. And ultimately threats for option 5, Carusi would be somewhat of an outlier and not able to have multiple programs or maintain the continuum of classes. So this is just an overview of the 5 options that were considered. Throughout the planning process, as I said before, I was able to participate as a valued stakeholder and communicate the needs of specific programs as we went along with the planning in real time. And then concerns were shared and considered by the committee as we discussed each option, as we discussed options that were not presented and we decided not to present. So it was a good opportunity to speak directly with everyone, all of the stakeholders on the committee. Finally, the committee presented 2 options to the board. However, all of the options are currently no options have been formally ruled out, which is why we wanted to discuss all 5 options this evening. The committee supports both option 4 and 5. But again, at this time, the board has not ruled out any options. And then just to kind of take a look at our thought exchange, for those of you who don't know, the thought exchange generates words based on how many are used by submissions. And looking at this, it is very much aligned with our thought that many of our students with special needs will struggle with transition. We will advocate to have programs continue for the duration of students' time in middle school. As we move forward based on the Board of Education recommendations, our students in special ed will be prioritized as decisions are made. And finally, some next steps. There's a tentative discussion for boundary option in February of 2022. And obviously this evening, we are hosting a town hall for community feedback that relates to special education. I just want to take a minute and thank everyone for coming. I know it's not always easy. I'm glad we were able to do it completely virtual. So ideally more parents would be able to attend.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Mallory, for doing the presentation and for sharing that information. And folks, now I just want to remind you of what our process will be this evening. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ovadia, who will serve as our facilitator, and we'll call on people to share their perspectives. Before I do that, I do want to share with everyone that we have, because you may want to write it down now. That we have a dedicated email address that we are using if people would like to email directly with feedback. And the email address, and we'll put this back up at the end as well. It's msfeedback@chclc.org. So during the course of this evening, if you don't get an opportunity to talk, or if you do get an opportunity to talk and there's something else that you want to share, or tomorrow or over the weekend, or as the process is continuing, please feel free to utilize this email address, msfeedback@chclc.org. It's a dedicated email address through which we can take all the information that's coming in about the middle schools and middle school redistricting and have that all together in one spot. All right, so just wanted folks to get an opportunity to see that so that you are familiar with it. And we can refer to it during the course of the evening. We'll put the slide up again at the end of the evening so that you can see it one last time. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Ovadia. Mr. Ovadia, as I said, is our Board of Education president, and he will be serving as our facilitator during the course of this evening. Mr. Ovadia, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Malash. Thank you, Ms. Mallory. Thank you to those who are attending. We appreciate this time away from what you could have been doing instead. Just want to say a couple quick words, and then I really wanted the comments and the questions and the feedback to steer this evening, because there has been many chances to engage. The board's gotten a lot of feedback. I did want to point out that we have the maximum number of board members we could have at this meeting as we did last week, because the board recognizes how critically important this issue is, how much it's being talked about and discussed, and how with the very best of intentions, we're getting a lot of opinion and ideas and feedback. And that's exactly what we envisioned in a robust and good process. So we have the max, and we're all ears. I did a little bit of research over the weekend, but we've been engaged in talking about configuration and what it could be for over 2 years. One of the things that set us on this path was the Dr. Grip report that is dated January 2020. So a year ago, we did a redistricting town hall, and we are what I would describe at the end of the beginning. We've heard from a lot of folks. I don't want people to think that if you don't say it tonight, it won't count. We've gotten a tremendous amount of very valuable feedback, all of which must be considered. We will have, under Ms. Friedel's leadership on Tuesday, a very robust discussion where I believe we will have to, as a Board of Education, really grapple with our next steps and where are we and what have we heard and where are we going. And so I really appreciate everyone's engagement tonight to help us put this together. And I will say, we definitely wanted to spotlight this particular evening, families with children with IEPs, families with children with 504s, because we feel that we've heard we want more. And so the education we'll get tonight is going to be invaluable to our thought process and our process as a board. And with that, I've said too much already. I will turn it to our first caller. For callers, just your name, municipality, and then just raise your hand in the chat, and we'll go in order. First up is Jen Nadio.
Hi, I'm Jen Nadio, and my husband is right next to me, and he has something like very small to say after me. So I may just read his along with mine as a parent. But tonight I'm actually here as the president of the Cherry Hill Special Ed PTA. Thank you for having this town hall. For those who are not familiar, families who have students with learning disabilities that do not meet the requirements of an IEP or a 504, and those with IEPs and 504s represent a very large piece of Cherry Hill School District population. These families juggle normal family functions, as well as doctor and therapy assessments and appointments, social, emotional, anxiety, and behavioral problem solving, navigating learning and communication deficits, and becoming proficient in new lingo while fighting for the rights of their children within the school district and tackling grief for the facts of how different our children can be and the loss of typical opportunities compared to general education. Our students have enormous transition challenges they tackle every day, and many have difficulty making friends. Many of our students are bused out of their neighborhoods 30 to 45 minutes to other neighborhood schools in the district because Cherry Hill doesn't have their individual program in their community school. It's been exhausting for so many of us for years. So CHSEPTA members were very concerned and angry when our students were not included in the middle school redistricting presentation on December 7th. After reading through much information and asking families for input, we had the following questions and opinions. Number one, with Ms. Mallory and Ms. Wethington on the committee and with both of their backgrounds in special education, how did they advocate and what did they advocate for those students in special education? Two, Brenda Considine wrote an article titled Students with Disabilities Caught in the School to Prison Pipeline in the recent edition of the NJCDD. It's an incredible article that we just shared with our members. I think everyone should read it. Since the added transitions negatively affect students with disabilities and others, what is the reasoning behind our school district wanting to negatively affect a group that is more at risk already by transitioning multiple times with a 6th grade center or removing them from friends if we don't keep them in their current school until they graduate? 3, CHSEPTA does not support a 6th grade center. Many of us have had students moved more than their neurotypical classmates. It destroys their opportunities of making and keeping friendships. It requires more than 1 year for some of our students to get into a routine. Moving them is detrimental to learning. And number 4, CHSEPTA supports and is advocating for all 3 middle schools being community schools and all students in special education having their programs in their community school. This will eliminate long bus rides, give these students an opportunity for the other children in their neighborhood to become their friend early in life and accept them. Hiding our students away from their community peers is difficult for the family as well as their child. It is long past due that Cherry Hill has the opportunity to right this wrong through this middle school reconfiguration. 5, how can CHSEPTA and other parent groups collaborate with this committee to be sure all our students are included in the decisions? And what my husband was going to read, but I'll just read it, is our twin sons were separated in kindergarten. One of our sons had no opportunity to learn next to his neighbors. He still has no friends in the neighborhood. If he were to stay in the neighborhood school with the right supports, imagine the different path he would have. So how can we change this in Cherry Hill? I thank you for listening and I thank you for your time. Good luck with your decisions.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I know there's definitely things I can't answer. Let me start with what I can. Ms. Nadio, if you can send me the article that you sent to your membership, I'd love to send that to the board. I know, you've spoken, I appreciate you speaking to transitions, community schools. In terms of the committee itself, let me pass that to Ms. Mallory if you want to chat about, because I guess my own opinion is that the work of the committee is not done. We're just in a point where we need additional clarification, direction to continue it. But let Ms. Mallory share.
Sure. So some of the consideration related to the first presentation, we didn't want to get too far into what the planning pieces were because we figured it was quite a bit of information to share with the community to start. Nevertheless, we were absolutely remiss in not discussing what we considered for special education students and students with 504s. I met with the CPAG and CHSEPTA the day after the board meeting to reassure them that although this wasn't presented as informative, we absolutely had a seat at the table and were able to facilitate discussion. I'm grateful that Ms. Wethington has the background knowledge for special education. So she always makes it a priority to have me or one of the supervisors sit in. And that'll be the case going forward. And definitely we will be communicating frequently, regularly. And I look forward to CHSEPTA sitting in as a stakeholder in this discussion. Mrs. Nadio, as always, thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you. We'll turn next to Kristen Vaglietta.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kristen Vaglietta, and I have a child with a 504 for generalized anxiety and for moderate OCD. I make a lot of public comment, and it's usually in the broader terms about what is best for the district at large. But tonight, I want to make a comment that's extremely personal, and I hope that you can each put yourself in my shoes as a parent, but more importantly, in my 11-year-old daughter's shoes for what her beautiful and unique brain puts her through on a daily basis. Let me start off by saying that in our household, we are fortunate and privileged enough to have the ability to access and provide therapy for our child to help her manage her anxiety and OCD. We've had times that she's been in intense therapies and times of maintenance therapy. She regularly experiences excessive anxiety or fears that seem irrational or illogical to many, but her brain won't allow her to approach her fears logically. These anxieties and fears can result in irritability, muscle tension, sleep disturbances, headaches, and stomach aches. Much of her anxiety revolves around her performance for adults in authority positions, so specifically her teachers. Her OCD presents in a multitude of ways, including obsessive thoughts about being perfect in school to the point that if she gets anything less than 100%, she will sometimes have hours-long meltdowns about how she isn't perfect enough. It presents in her writing and rewriting and editing and re-editing homework assignments until they're quote unquote perfect. Something that might take a neurotypical student 20 minutes can take her up to 3 hours. Her OCD perfectionism and moral scrupulosity presents as her holding her friends to such high standards that almost no child can meet, thereby severely impacting her ability to make and retain friends. So to say that transitions in the educational settings are challenging for my child, and so many who are like her, is a gross understatement. It has taken from September until the end of January to her to be comfortably transitioned from elementary to middle school. And this is not an atypical amount of time for a child with anxiety or OCD. Now I just have a couple of quotes from actual experts. So from Very Well Minded in April of 2020, research has consistently found that moving schools can be particularly difficult for children in the elementary and middle school years, and exacerbated even further for adolescents with anxiety or OCD. From a Time magazine article in January of this year, Pandemic Anxiety is Fueling OCD Symptoms, the quote is, yet another 2020 study published in BMC Psychiatry in October focused on young people ages 7 to 21 and found that nearly 45% experienced a worsening of overall OCD symptoms within the first pandemic year. And then from the JAMA Network this past August, the question is, what is the global prevalence of clinically elevated child and adolescent anxiety and depression symptoms during COVID-19? The findings are, in this meta-analysis of 29 studies, including 80,879 youth globally, the pooled prevalence estimates of clinically elevated child and adolescent depression and anxiety were 25.2% and 20.5% respectively. Meaning the global estimates of child and adolescent mental illness observed in the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic in this study indicate that the prevalence has significantly increased, remains high, and therefore warrants attention for mental health recovery planning. And this one is local from New Jersey Hospital Associations. A review of New Jersey Emergency Department hospital claims from 2019 versus 2020 shows an 84% increase in depression and a 74% increase in anxiety for patients under 18. The district has not yet presented strong enough data to warrant adding an extra transition with a 6th grade center for all of those students currently in 4th grade and lower, and for those currently in 5th or 6th grade who will be in 7th or 8th grade when these changes happen. Anything other than allowing students to finish middle school where they start is not in the best interest for most special education students, including my own child. Please consider a 6th option that includes the board going back to the district for an option that would allow students to remain where they began for 3 6th through 8th grade buildings, and for providing special education services at all 3 of those buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And, we appreciate that. I mean, we know that, as much as we can talk in abstractions and think about, the good of a system without looking at, the individual experiences and concerns are paramount. Right? That's what's meaningful to families, and we appreciate you sharing that. All right, let me go next to Jacqueline Armstrong.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you for having this town hall and for letting us speak our mind about our kiddos. My name is Jackie Armstrong. I have a child currently attending Russell Knight, who is in the 5th grade, and 2 sons who are attending Johnson. Two of our 3 children have special needs, 504s, or an IEP. Our daughter was transferred into Knight as a 2nd grader because her home school did not have the resources available to support her. Our daughter is autistic and she does not handle transitions well. She has extreme anxiety and tremendous difficulty with regulating her emotions. Kristen, I just wanted to say thank you for such a detailed description of your daughter, as I can completely relate to everything that you just described. So nonetheless, that was an extremely difficult year for our daughter, as well as our entire family. Aside from the academic and emotional changes our child had to deal with, the social component was especially difficult. Our daughter had to basically start over and face all of the same experiences again as in kindergarten, but with all of her peers already having relationships intact and formed. It's similar to when a family moves into a new township, but the difference is the deficits our child faces refuses her the ability to navigate that world appropriately. This would be true for many special ed students in any grade that has to make this type of transition. Now we are asking her to go to another school based on what resources are available. We are asking her to revisit all of those same challenges again, but now with the chance of having those same challenges forced on her yet another year later. I'm not sure she can sustain that kind of pressure and that type of dysregulation. It could be catastrophic to not only her, but to our entire family. You say that mental health is a priority for our students, and this is mental health in its purest form. Please allow our children to stay where they began their middle school years. Having the same resources available to students at all schools enables children like our daughter to be with their peers that they live near and engage with in their community. It allows for them to focus on their academics, which is what they should be focused on. Not, oh my gosh, I have to do this all over again. I don't know anyone. I don't have my friends to make me feel safe and comfortable. I don't know the way to the bathroom. What are these lockers? I have no idea what to do with these lockers. Please make all three schools have the same resources available so that all of the special ed students have the same opportunities that the neurotypical and gen ed peers have. This would be the most equitable solution and would ensure the least restrictive environment for our kiddos. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the panel, sorry, if you have somebody contribute, if you could raise your hands too, I'll try to manage the supply and demand here. Really appreciate those comments. I will tell you that we're going to absolutely, I mean, a couple things that are going to be critical that you talked about will absolutely be part of the discussion Tuesday, because I think a lot of what you're talking about, you know, for your case and speaking for others as well, is it's been rising to the top, and it's absolutely something that has to have direction. And so, you know, as a board, you know, in a format like this, we're really listening, but when we come together, that's when we have to really, you know, navigate some consensus and some path forward. So very, very appreciated, and it's very helpful. Next up is Meredith Levin.
Hello, I'm Meredith Levin. I am the co-facilitator of the CPAG for Cherry Hill, and I have two sons, both with IEPs. One is at Bret Hart in the BES program and has been since second grade, and his homeschool is Johnson. And my other son is autistic, is in Horace Mann in kindergarten, and did go through the Berkeley preschool disabled program. I want to start off by saying, first off, I appreciate every one of you guys who are on this panel tonight, listening, taking the time, and actually hearing our concerns as special needs parents. I also want to take the time to thank you for, last thing I'm going to say is I'm also a special education teacher. I am a teacher of an LD room, of a resource room, specifically learning disabled. I have been for 15 years. So I come from the perspective of both the parent and the teacher. And I also come from the perspective of being in a school district that is now losing all the money from fair funding, where they were getting it for so long and now they're losing it, whereas we're kind of on the other end of that. So I want to thank all of you who have been here for a really long time, who have managed the bleeding of losing all that fair funding money and have tried your best in managing the special needs programs for what they were with as little money as we've had. And I want to thank you again for now taking the money we're getting and trying to fix some of the bleeding and make better and make new decisions and new pathways. And that being said, as an advocate for a son who's about to go into middle school, but also just as an advocate for middle school because I'm a middle school teacher. I'm asking you guys to consider whatever you do, and I heard Miss Mallory say this in many different ways, the best way you can to have inclusivity in every single program. So even like unfortunately, the 5 different options, there was always a downside, and one of the schools didn't have the opportunity to be inclusive. And I think something that I would hope, all the administrators in the district sees is that if you go into the co-teaching model schools within the district, and even Heart, which isn't necessarily the co-teaching model, but the BES program, there is a different feel to the inner workings, the fabric of the teachers within the school. When you have inclusivity and co-teaching model within a class, within a school district, it changes how the kids feel accepted, how the kids feel comfortable, how the teachers feel comfortable asking their peers for help. It just definitely makes a difference. So moving forward, now that we are getting more money and we are kind of starting from scratch, redistricting and making new decisions, please keep that in mind, that like at the very least, that we can find a way to make inclusion be in every model. For example, not saying anything negatively, because somehow Bret Hart still made it work beautifully. They didn't have a co-teaching model. They have the BES program, but thankfully they have the most amazing BES teachers that work so well with their general ed teachers that they made that seamless mainstreaming piece work well. My son, knock on wood, has had a great experience with that. Unfortunately, sometimes if you don't have that co-teaching piece already worked in, kind of with the 2 teachers in the room and things of that nature planned out, it doesn't work as seamlessly as Bret Hart has made it work, and you get problems. So I'm just asking you guys to kind of consider that, even if that means finding option 7. And then I'm going to throw poor Miss Mallory, I'm throwing her a curveball here, so get ready. She's kind of used to this from me, and so is Miss Weathington. I sat on the Beck presentation yesterday for the middle schools, and my son is twice exceptional, and he is both has an IEP, but he's also in TAG, and I was kind of shocked that there is no TAG program or tier 3 program or whatever the other districts call it for middle school. And that is a little on the disappointing side for us. And I understand that could have been a budget cut in years past because we didn't want to cut people, so we had to cut programs, right? I highly urge you guys in your reforming of the middle schools to bring that back. And it does fall under this conversation, because a lot of times our IEP kiddos are the ones, just like my son, who are bored because they're not being challenged enough. And there are specific teachers that are talented and can bring that to the table. So I just want you guys to consider that. And I also want to throw this out there too. Consider related arts for the middle schools, or whatever we call them, encores. Districts around us have much more interesting options, and it makes the kids, I can tell you firsthand, it makes the kids want to be in school. If they can go to music being called DJ class and work with technology and music put together, or like ADP as like being medical examiners, in instead of more reading, they're still reading. You know what I mean? It's just that their creative outlet. So I just I ask you guys, board, especially when you're considering those things, it really it helps our kids who can't stand just sitting and reading anymore. But furthermore, it will help everybody. I'm sorry if I rambled. I think that's everything. Join the CPAG.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, absolutely join CPAC. And thank you for sharing. I will tell you that before I go to Ms. Mallory, which I will go to as quickly as I possibly can, but I will tell you that, this discussion isn't about kids and buildings. It's not about bricks and mortar, right? I mean, goodness knows we wouldn't have spent 2 years. It really is about understanding also, what is the experience? What is happening for what are the programs? What are you seeing? And so this really is a great foundation to talk about many issues. Now, that said, the curricular pieces, the specific programs, there is an interrelation. We can't go necessarily too deeply on this one, but it is all related. So, we appreciate, the variety of input that we've just gotten, and that's great. Now I will turn it over to, Ms. Mallory, had a couple things to say, so let me go to her right away here.
Yeah, so thank you so much again from CPAG. CPAG and CHSEPTA we meet with them regularly to have discussions and hear concerns and, just have candid conversation about what the needs are, what the priorities are. And CPAG is definitely, it's all of them are in every building in the district. However, we've had some turnover, so we're looking for members to join CPAG. I don't believe it's a huge time commitment, but it would definitely be valuable to have more stakeholders in our discussions. And I also want to share that on Wednesday, March 2nd, the district in collaboration with CPAG will be presenting, SPAN will be presenting, and the district's collaborating with CPAG to make this possible. So mark your calendars and expect some more information. Thank you, Meredith.
Right, March 2nd, also, definitely come to this event. Also Read Across America Day. Pick up a book, read it aloud. It's one of my favorite things to do as a board member. I would do it every week if I could. All right, next is LN.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, hello. My name is
Yes.
Jack Neary. I am from Cherry Hill. I just want to, I guess, tell about my experiences transitioning from middle school. I had a bit of a rough time having social anxiety and, well, autism. But I had a bit of a rough time transitioning. It was a little bit difficult, but I eventually did transition well, and I kept up my grades. When COVID hit, that was a big shock for everyone. And I think maybe a big change like this might not be the best for everyone, especially after COVID. And since kids are having a hard time with friends, and especially I'm having a hard time with friends right now, don't have many, but I'm struggling a bit with words here, but yeah. Just thank you for sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. We really appreciate, Jack reminds at least, me, and I know all the board members, we're here for you, the student perspective. And, friends has come up in this discussion. It's a critically important thing, as we think about, what do transitions mean and what does leveling mean? It's absolutely a vital part of what we're talking about and thinking about. I neglected to say with an earlier commenter, but social emotional health, if we say it's important, yeah, this board absolutely thinks it's critical. We know we're in a pandemic. We'd love to be out of a pandemic. We know that there have been struggles above and beyond what's happened, but actually, to make a better system, and so, Jack, we really do appreciate you jumping in here. Yes, Dr. Malash.
Thanks, Mr. Vaglietta. I also want to thank Jack for being willing to call in. And as you said, it's always valuable for us to hear directly from the students about their perspective. His voice, is important for us. And just to follow up with Ms. Levin, she had a question or a comment about Talented and Gifted, the TAG program that we have in the district. We do have TAG. It does not look the same at the middle school as it does at the elementary level. Opportunities for those extensions, those TAG type activities take place both in the classroom as well as part of advisory periods with the opportunities we provide for math, the differentiation, some of the math courses that are available. And it becomes more of it's a transitional piece in the middle schools between what elementary TAG looks like and then the what we would consider at the high school level, which would be the honors and AP classes. So Ms. Levin, don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out. I know you're connected with Ms. Mallory on a regular basis. Reach out to her. We can match you up with somebody else, to have that ongoing discussion as well. Thanks, Mr. Avadia.
Sure. Now I'm going to call on Ms. Barbara Wilson. But before you get panicked, school will be starting at normal time tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Avadia. Yeah, this time I'm actually just checking in with a time check. It is now 7:45 p.m. That puts us at about halfway through our allotted time for the evening, just letting you know.
Awesome. Thank you. Ms. Mallory.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick, special thanks to Jack. I really appreciate the feedback. We really appreciate the feedback. I'd love to talk with you more to see if you have any ideas for how we can improve and work together to create more inclusive opportunities for all students. I know how difficult it can be in high school because there's so many students. So really appreciate you logging in and giving us your perspective.
We're going to turn to the line once again with Christina Hobbs. Ooh, I believe you're still on mute. Oh, there you are.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. First of all, thank you, everyone. I just want to thank Dr. Malash and the Board of Education members and our special education leadership team for giving us this opportunity to voice our thoughts on the middle school redistricting. My name is Christina Hobbs. I am also a co-facilitator of the CPAG. So tonight I am actually speaking on a personal level on behalf of my son, Tyler. Tyler is in the 5th grade at Bret Harte. He's a part of the Behavioral Emotional Support Program and has been in this program since kindergarten. And Tyler is in the unique situation where most likely when we go through our IEP reviews in the spring, he will be placed at Rosa to continue through with the BES program. However, because we're a Bret Harte family and Bret Harte is our home school, he would be districted to Beck. So this redistricting could change his direction in 7th grade. He would go to he would go to Rosa for 6th grade and then possibly have to move over to Beck for 7th grade, depending on where the programs are slated to be placed. So I just wanted to say our families, our special education families, have experienced an enormous amount of change and transition through our children's educational journeys. For many of us, it actually began during the daycare years. Some of our kids, like Tyler, were actually fortunate enough to attend the amazing Barkley Early Childhood Center. But after 1 or 2 years with what was an incredible educational team, forming bonds with other children with differing abilities and surrounded by families in similar circumstances, our kids separated and moved forward to their respective elementary schools. If self-contained, like Tyler, our children may not have attended their neighborhood elementary schools, although Tyler was lucky enough to have his program in his neighborhood elementary school. However, some kids did not. And they've had to experience early bus pickups and long rides home from school across Cherry Hill. Some of our kids were classified during the elementary years and as a result, needed to transition out of their neighborhood schools in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and even 4th grades to receive services at a brand new school. During their elementary school journey, our kids have become flexible in transitioning repeatedly in and out of the mainstream setting, co-teaching, in and out of PT, OT, ESS, which is therapy, during regular class times. All of these transitions and changes have caused some social separation from their neurotypical classmates and have made it challenging for families to find a stable village of friends and neighbors that most neurotypical families have developed. And then the pandemic hit. We went to remote learning, loss of in-person services for some, social isolation, regression, loneliness, so much change, so many transitions. Our kids, our most vulnerable kids, have had to be so incredibly flexible their entire young lives. Our kids are tired and our families are tired. While our son had the opportunity to return to full-time in-person learning last fall, we were determined to help make him have his final year of elementary be amazing. We were excited for his middle school journey ahead, the ability to make brand new social connections and participate in after-school activities, music, clubs, sports, to continue growing old friendships and form new bonds that would carry him into high school. 3 consistent years in the same learning environment. Then the middle school redistricting discussions began. Please, for those of us who already have children in special education programs at a particular middle school, like Tyler, who may begin at Rosa and end up finishing at Beck, please keep our kids in their same schools with their friends, their teachers, their therapists, their trusted village of educators. If our son begins middle school in the BES program next year at Rosa, please let him finish middle school at Rosa. I cannot stress enough the importance of existing connections as our kids build up walls, and it takes them so long to trust new faces. Please don't ask them to start over again in 7th grade, as some of our kids have had to do so many times before. I also ask that you allow their mainstream classmates to continue their middle school journeys through the 8th grade. After facing adversity their entire young lives, and after living through the inconsistencies of the pandemic, please help provide our kids with some stability during these essential years of growth so that they may transition to high school with confidence. Our families would be very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the personal side of what you said. I think, Ms. Mallory, there's probably an open question now. So to join CHSEPTA that presented first, I think people know how to do that. You mentioned that there might be room on CPAC. And so how does someone sort of raise their hand? We've had 2 co-facilitators speak tonight, but let's assume, so they're already in. But for someone who would want to join that effort, what's the process?
Mr. Vaglietta, you're stealing my thunder at the end. I'll do it now. I was going to post the link in the chat to our special education and student services portion of the website. I know at times people have difficulty navigating, so I'm going to post it. It takes you directly to the website. And if you look on the left side, you can see information about CHSEPTA. And I'm sorry, at the bottom, there's information about how to join CHSEPTA and 504s, but certainly don't hesitate to email me if you need assistance, and I'll put you in touch with the right people.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have on the line Janet Hung.
Good evening. My name is Janet Hung, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Cherry Hill Zone PTA. We are making a public comment this evening to express our support for the Cherry Hill Public Schools special education families and the concerns they have expressed over the last several weeks and this evening. We encourage the Board of Education to consider what is best in the best interest of our special education population in terms of both education and the students' social emotional learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, well, with no hands raised, I would just say that, forums like this are essential, and we're hearing, already tonight we have several themes that have been thematic before tonight, but we're getting good perspective, good on the ground in the family. At the end of the day, the board kind of at the policy level, and even, administration, we'll look all over that individual story. It's a critical part of our discussion, and, you don't want, we need that perspective, and we need that diversity of perspectives. So this is very, very valuable. By the way, if you want to join Zone PTA, represents 19 schools. The PTAs, many board members have some history on PTA, and it's certainly vital to our township and to the work that gets done. There's one person on the line that's thinking about it, but if you would raise your hand again, I would gladly call on you. But Zone PTA, join your local PTA, and then I think at the president's discretion, you may attend the zone table. And then, of course, they have a board as well, which Janet is the head of. Next, we'll go to, thank you for saving me from continuing, Corinne Driscoll, you are next.
Hi there. Sorry, I'm having some technical problems. Well, I just wanted to briefly, well, first I want to say thank you for, having this town hall for all of us. All of us parents really do appreciate it. I do sit on the board of CHSAPTA, but right now I'm calling, just commenting on behalf of my son. My son is a sixth grader at Beck. I'd like to echo, a lot of what Jenna said, Christina, Kristen, Jackie. My son started his education in Cherry Hill School District in a school that was not in our neighborhood. He was bused over to Russell Knight. We didn't live in Barclay at the time. He received an incredible education over there. However, because it wasn't a neighborhood school, we had to work very hard for him to make friends and for me to get to know the neighborhood and make friends with the parents. As a result of spending all the time over in that neighborhood, we didn't get to know our neighborhood because my son didn't go to Clara Barton, which is the school that he should have been going to. Now he's in sixth grade over at Beck. So we're starting over again. We do live in Barclay, but now we're working hard to let him have friendships and for him to become part of the Beck community. He spends between 35 and 45 minutes every day minimum over taking the bus to and from school each way. He oftentimes arrives at school late. The bus picks him up late to come home. The kid spends a lot of time, going someplace where, if services were provided in all three middle schools, he could be in the neighborhood, with a much shorter commute and with the friends that he had made when he was a student at Russell Knight. We work really hard with him and with our community, to make it work for him, but it's been very difficult. And, if we do this redistricting and, and he does get moved again, that means that potentially in eighth grade, he could be going to yet another school. And then a year following that, go to high school. So, I would just encourage everybody to try to find a way to offer all special education programs in all three middle schools so that what happened with our family doesn't happen with other families. So that's all. But thank you for listening. And thank you for all the work that you've been doing. I know it's not easy, but thanks for listening to us.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling in and that perspective. And we appreciate it. Thank you for hanging in with the technology as well. I would tell you that, time on the bus is critical consideration that's been mentioned here and before, and it certainly is important. Geography, and then also thinking about, our school communities and having, programs and what that looks like and where people go and what it means for, again, friendships. Just like taking it back to Jack, just like, friendships, right, in our schools. Olivia Hung, you are next.
Hello? Okay. So, hi, I'm Olivia and I'm a junior at East. I have 504 accommodations for my severe food allergies to 7 of the top 8 allergens and PTSD resulting from a near-death anaphylaxis reaction when I was 7. A reaction so severe that CHOP published an article about my reaction and recovery. When I heard about Rosa possibly coming in 8th grade school only, I was upset about those students who would miss out. For me, moving from elementary school to a place with this who I was in for the same people for half my life would be like leaving another home. I knew moving to a new school would be difficult, but it was harder than I thought. In elementary school, I remember only having one panic attack. I think it would be agreed upon that middle school is an awkward time for everyone, and during this time, I had a lot of anxiety build up. Although I had a few panic attacks in 7th and 8th grade, moving to high school was much better. I had previously met upperclassmen from playing field hockey and softball at Rosa. So at the 8th grade open house, I was walking around and seeing all the familiar faces of upperclassmen from middle school was comforting. The upperclassmen I knew would say hi to me as I walked around, and it made me feel good and that I wasn't walking into a foreign place as I had felt going into middle school. During the field hockey season in my freshman year, it was nice to talk to upperclassmen and about how they wanted to know what teachers I had and what classes I was taking. It made me feel like I always had someone to talk to. Middle school gave me this opportunity to meet and get to know people who I'd eventually be in high school with. If Rosa were to become a sixth grade school only, it would hinder these important relationships that are made. Eighth graders take sixth graders under their wing, and seventh grade is where you gain the confidence as an upperclassman. Of course, I'm not besties with every upperclassman I know, but having these relationships from middle school really made my transition to high school much better than I could have asked for. My anxiety is triggered by sudden and unknown changes. Although being in a transitional school wouldn't be very sudden, it would be a difficult change. Being in a school for only a year and then moving to a new school would definitely bring more anxiety. And transitioning into another school the following year, separated from the friends you just made in sixth grade, and being thrown in with eighth graders would surely be detrimental to a student like me. Personally, I have anxiety meeting new people, as I'm sure everyone else does. But being with new people in back-to-back school years would surely induce more panic attacks for a middle schooler who is like me. Middle school is already an awkward time in life, and I cannot imagine having to change schools in 2 years in a row and losing out on those experiences I gained from middle school sports. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Appreciate the perspective, the comments. We really appreciate you participating tonight, and it's a lot of valuable. I will say, this has come up many times tonight. This idea of sixth grade versus the 6 to 8, clearly a critical issue for the community, for us. We've honestly, this has been the highlight of my day, and it was a pretty good day before this. But this perspective on the individual level, what Olivia, what you're sharing with us, very valuable. There's nothing. We're not going to get this kind of feedback any other way. A lot of times people do say about the town halls, like, why aren't you more like further along in the process when you're coming to us? And I just think, because we need a lot of perspectives. This is something major we're undertaking. We believe in it, believe it has value, and that it will have value for this community. And again, 2 years in, but so there will come a time, and that time is soon, to get some direction. But the value, what we're getting tonight. So Olivia, just want to really, really thank you. Let me do this. I'm going to go to Craig Becker next. He gets a first bite at the apple. But if you have your hand raised, and we will try to get to everybody tonight. So Craig Becker, you are next.
It's Beth Becker, but I am using Craig's Zoom apparently.
We'll allow it.
First of all, I'm gonna repeat myself some things that many of you have already heard, but there's new people at this meeting. So first of all, the sixth grade center is the plan for the sixth grade center says it's already over capacity, and from what I understand from the last town hall, that does not consider the fact that all three, the sixth grade center would have to have every special education program available, since it would be across the entire district. But I would also like to say that if you do 6, 7, and 8 buildings, that you do try to make it equitable, so that as many special education programs as possible are across districts, so kids are not having to, as previous callers said, move across town, go across town for their program. I know it's not possible to do it for every single program, but as many as possible. Also, Kristen Vaglietta and I put together a petition. We're almost at 1,000 signatures. So if anyone wants to sign, hit us up. But so in terms of special education, making a sixth grade center that would require that building to offer every service, like we said, and it's going to be very challenging. The district in the past has said they can't provide every service in one building because certain services need to be separated. And would there even be enough space, right? An extra year of transition for many special education students is simply not appropriate. Transitions disrupt the learning, progress, and development of many special education students at a higher rate than that of their general education peers. Many of these special education students will lose social and emotional development, as they will be separated in 7th and 8th grade from the friends that they made in 6th. I also want to add that there's additional transitions. It's not just a transition to a new building, new friends, but there's also transitions to new counselors, new specialists in a different building. My husband, whose Zoom I'm using, is a special education attorney and has seen an increase in his clients. This is anecdotal, of course, but in his clients who have been in districts with a one-year school, he's seen an increase in, their need to call on him and just an increase in students' needs when they are in a one-year school. And that's it. Thank you so much for having these town halls. I really, really appreciate the transparency and the openness with which the board and the district is doing lots out, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for calling in and making those points. We appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, look, the board values and the administration values these town halls, and I think I think we're better for it. I appreciate your continued engagement. All right, we're gonna once again turn to Meredith Levin.
Hi guys. Just in a bigger picture here, as you know, CPAG, we work with you guys on like systemic levels, and for a bigger picture, a question for you guys. Have you considered what the impact of the programming for the high schools are going to have when we start changing the middle school program, which I hope we do, because clearly we're all advocating for programs at every school. But rumor is, I don't know 100% whether this is accurate or not, but there seems to be a lot more special education programming at West. And so would that become more equitable moving forward as the years continue on and these grades start moving up?
That's a great question. Dr. Malash, let me turn to you. I don't know. I know that they're in looking at two levels of our education. Clearly, there are going to be implications to the entire system, but I don't know how you would want to couch that.
Sure. So the high school programming, for the most part, is offered at both of the comprehensive high schools, at High School East and High School West. And we have the special class with the alternative high school, the Coles Alternative Program, which is run as well, which is really a special class program. The students remain enrolled as students at High School East and High School West. We have gone back and forth, honestly, over the course of the last 15 years with looking at the functional and vocational programs that operate right now solely at West to offer them at East. And parents chose to have their children at the time attend West in the established program that was there. Certainly something that can be discussed. And one of the things always that the department and the folks in pupil services look at, is the number of children, by school or, as they are together that are in a specific program. In order to run a program, typically we would need multiple children, depending upon the type of program that it is. I see Miss Mallory's got her hand up too. If you want to jump in, Caitlin.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to share, I certainly can't take credit for it, but one of the things that I found particularly impressive was our transitional vocational program at West. And there's a lot of setup that goes into it. Those of you who've seen it certainly know it's created a school culture. When you look at the store and students that shop at the store, students that aren't specifically in the program use a lot of the resources there. But yeah, I mean, the consideration for programs at East is definitely, in the back of our minds as well. But I just wanted to share that about the program.
Thank you. I can say this, no hands up, so I'll just go off script as usual. I will say, we have, look, there's no understating the importance of this topic. But there are a lot of topics for this year that we'll be delving into. And some of what's being touched on tonight is included, and so, one program that at one point was presented, very impressive, the virtual program, I believe that's at West or OTC. So anyway, thinking about programs and what we offer, absolutely, Mrs. Arroyo, who sits on our board in CNI, and the great work that gets done there. For those tuning in Tuesday, if you needed another reason, high school start times. Yes, we have not forgotten you. So Dr. Morton will be regaling you with stories from, that massive amount of work. I know sometimes people say like, well, why don't you just do one thing at a time? And yeah, I don't know. But we're trying to, do jumping jacks while walking, while, flipping our hair. I don't know what the right analogy is. All right, well, I can say this has been very valuable. I would just turn it over to kind of like the participants for one more round of anybody with just something to really share that you think would be remiss not to hear in this public forum. And keep in mind, as Dr. Malash said, that email account is open. We're getting emails daily. These are very valuable, and that will be open. There will not be, as far as I know, another thought exchange. So that email that's on the screen is critically important at this juncture. We've had a lot of thought exchange activity that's been presented. We will review, that sort of in deliberation and preparation. Okay, so I do see a hand up. I think we'll do, this will be our last one, and I will turn it one final time here to Jen. Oh, okay, you know what? Okay, there are two hands up. We will take you both, and then we'll begin wrapping up the evening. Jen, Nadio, you're next.
I wanted to also, hello everyone again. I wanted to also look at a different side of this. We had an option when so we had the twins, and our one was at Bret Hart, and then our other student, we had an option. And our option was, do we put him in inclusion at either Kingston or, can't remember the other school we were looking at, okay? And then, and actually we were kind of blessed because we got to see Dr. Malash's mom working at Kingston that day. So we were so excited. But the other option that we had was, do we take our son who has autism, but is more on the, oh, I hate these labels, but higher functioning, right? And we put him in Thomas Paine that had multiply disabled and no inclusion program. But he'd be around his friends, his neighborhood friends. And those neighborhood friends would learn about how he was different and accept him from a very early age. So when I'm hearing everyone tonight, everyone sounds fantastic. When we had to make that decision, we went the harder route. We had to do more advocating for him. He was more on the OHI side. We had, which is other health impaired for those of you who don't know. We had to advocate every single year at IEP meetings to make sure that he was getting all the services he needed. And he was in with neurotypical students most of the time. There weren't two teachers. There was one teacher, and she was helping, and sometimes he'd have a one-to-one, sometimes he wouldn't, sometimes he'd have behavior therapy, sometimes he wouldn't. It was hard to do what we did. When we're looking at middle schools, we then chose Carusi for him, which was great because at that point, he was able to get, he was able to have those inclusion classrooms, and that's when he thrived, even more so. But that's what I'm saying, like we need to have these programs so that our students, all of them, have the ability to grow around other students. That's what our other son was missing. And our other son, we forgot to say this earlier, 6 different schools, 6, and he's only 18. So, there's a whole lot to say about, to see about that. And we just wanted to make sure that you saw both sides. yeah, if COVID hadn't happened, Justin would have been going to his 7th school. So, you know, he's in a different environment now, but to find a way that our students are accepted, that they feel great about themselves, because when they feel wonderful about themselves, they excel. And if they're struggling all the time, they're not going to make those humongous changes. So I understand that redistricting is hard. I get it. But at the same time, and thankfully, I am not in that environment right now. But what we learned when we were doing all of this is valuable to all of you. And we just hope that somehow we can get those programs in each community school so that our kids can like learn from each other. Anyway, good night and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to turn to Nilda Claudio.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, good.
Yes.
Good evening. Good evening, and thank you so much for this time. I just am going to speak from my child's experience. It's more of I don't have a particular question. I have thoughts, about this process. He started with a 504, then was in an inclusion class, and he went in the middle of 4th grade. He went to Bret Hart because he needed the BES program, and he is now at Rosa in 6th grade in the BES program. And with COVID and with the transition of like not having a full 5th grade year, he's really having a very difficult time in his current classroom setting. It is the program that he needs, but he is having a difficult time. My concern is when all these schools get redistricted, the services that he has right now include, the main teacher and assistant in the classroom, also include his individual therapy and group therapy. So that's another factor that the school district needs to look at is, if, for example, if you have a 6th grade center and all those kids are in the 6th grade, then they go to their neighboring schools for 7th and 8th. Will you have the ability to staff that, those type of programs? Also, his BS class is a very small class, so it's not like my if I look at my kids' classroom setting right now, I mean, I think there's about 5 6th graders in there with him. So where would those 5 6th graders go in each individual school as part of this BS program, which I feel is a wonderful program, and I think has been a godsend for my child and our family. So those are the kind of thoughts that are kind of just going through my head, is like, what's going to happen, as the kids that are coming through the Bret Hart BS program, what's going to happen when they go into the middle schools, and there's only a few of them. So if you then keep just the BS in the 6th grade center per se, then they lose the ability to have those peer relationships with 7th graders and 8th graders, and vice versa if they go, to the separate schools and there's only 2 of them in a class. I just don't know how that would work. I think that the way it's set up now is great. I'm just concerned of how that program would look like in the future. No particular questions, but just kind of food for thought to think about with regards to that program. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to Ms. Mallory to address some of that.
Thank you so much, Ms. Claudio. So this is definitely something that we're considering as administration and looking at our programs, which is why I gave that little disclaimer in the beginning. It certainly wouldn't be efficient or appropriate for students to have only one other child in the class with them. So, with all the hypotheticals, we've actually even discussed, do we take in tuition students? Do we look to balance our programs in other ways? And, just to kind of assure you, the IEPs are what drive the supports that students receive, and those supports would be wherever the students are. Thanks. That's it.
Once again, we're going to give a new caller a chance. Kristen DeGregorio. You're up.
Hey, sorry about that. This is Nick, Christian's husband. I'll be brief. I know we're almost out of time. I just wanted to give a quick story in support of making sure that we have inclusion classrooms in every one of the schools. We moved here last year from Philadelphia, and we moved specifically because Philadelphia does not offer inclusion at many of their schools. My wife is actually a special ed teacher for a Philadelphia school district, so she was very well versed on all the research around inclusion model. And when we had discussed with our fourth grade daughter at the time, being in a pull-out model, she was mortified. So we actually selected Cherry Hill because of the inclusion model. And we did some extensive interviews with both people in the district and with neighbors from the neighborhood that we moved to. She's currently in the inclusion classroom in 5th grade at Russell Knight. She's flourishing. Her grades in math and reading and writing have gone from C's to A's. The tears at night, every single night, are gone during homework time. And it would be a disservice to all of the kids that are kind of on that borderline to take away that inclusion model at any of the schools. Because, what a bunch of other people touched on as well is that it's very difficult when they don't go to neighborhood schools for them to develop meaningful relationships and to get into study groups, with their friends and really, participate in a group learning environment with other kids their age. And then just one other comment I wanted to make about the redistricting and turning Rosa into a community school. Based on what people were talking about with the transitions, and we're dealing with this too, transitioning from Philly to Knight and then, going into middle school next year. If Rosa becomes a community school and our neighborhood or other people's neighborhoods are going to be part of that catchment area, it would be nice to see the board do something where the lottery gives preference to those students from the future catchment area next year, so that they can have 3 years of continuity in middle school as well. Because that's going to be another concern, is that if Rose is going to be the catchment for 7th grade and they don't get selected in the lottery in 6th grade, it's going to be another year of transition as well. It's going to be going to Carusi or going to Beck and then going to Rosa later. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have a final comment from, and this will be our final public comment of the evening before we wrap up, from Christina Hobbs.
Hi, everyone. Just one last comment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I just wanted to add this into something, or put on my CPAG hat now, my co-facilitator CPAG hat. I have been advocating for a couple of years now for better mainstream peer leadership with our self-contained students. And what I'd like to see, and I know a lot of our families would like to see, is and I am not familiar with how middle school, Tyler is my first child, so I don't know what is existing in middle school right now. But what I would love to see is when we get to the middle school level and all of this redistricting is taking place, that we think about that and maybe implement some sort of partnership program, peer leadership program, so that our students that would like to participate, that are in the mainstream setting, could maybe partner and lead our self-contained or our IEP and 504 students along the way in middle school. As Caitlin knows, I've been Ms. Mallory, I've been advocating for this in a lot of our meetings on the elementary level, but I would love to see it in the middle school level, because this is when our kids are forming their very important friendships during difficult years. So, a lot of them, especially with the pandemic, have had trouble establishing social connections. We've moved around a lot, virtual learning, in and out of school. Our kids have trouble making solid friendships. If there's any way that the district could utilize something similar to what we have going on, I don't know if they have the safety program at every elementary school, but we have it at Bret Hart. It's fantastic. My son is a safety. He's partnered up with a mainstream child who is fantastic. And as soon as the safety program got going, he was excited to go to school in the morning and fulfill his duties, and it's wonderful. So it really does make a difference when other children who are interested in being leaders lead our kids and help them along. So I just wanted to make that suggestion and put that thought in your head as we go along with this redistricting process. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mallory.
I just wanted to add on to that. That's absolutely true, and emphasize the need for CPAG members, because we're looking to work with individual schools at the building levels to see how we can create comparable programs that she just spoke about, Ms. Hobbs just spoke about. So it's definitely important to have those members to kind of facilitate those conversations at the building level.
All right, and shout out to the safety program. I used to know safety very well. Lives under my roof. Oh, yes. Ms. Dave, did you want to?
Hi. I did want to share, I believe that there are programs that are happening across all different buildings. The safety program does exist in each school. Principals may lead it differently with teacher advisors, but there are opportunities for all of the students to get involved as they reach 5th grade. There are also programs, and I'm going to use Horace Mann as an example only because I was the principal there, where there were students and teachers going in and presenting to the gen ed classroom so that they could learn about different disabilities and learn about different students. And so I think those opportunities exist. Do they exist enough yet? No, I don't believe that we're there. But I do believe that they exist, and it's an opportunity for us to continue to grow in the right way. I take pride in knowing that I very rarely hear that there are students from Mann that are ever making fun of any students with special needs. Why is that the case? Because they have a greater understanding from the programs that have existed in the building. And I think we have so many opportunities to just continue to help our students, and I mean all of our students because my own boys are there, to just learn about each other and grow together. So they exist. I think we just need to continue to foster them.
Thank you. I'm going to turn over to Dr. Malash, who will help us conclude the evening, which just my final thought has been wonderful. And I thank everyone who shared and everyone who made time for this.
Thank you, Mr. Ovadia, and thank you for facilitating. I do want to remind folks again that you'll have the opportunity to continue to share your perspective and share your thoughts. We do have this dedicated email address that we would encourage people to use. It's msfeedback@chclc.org. We will acknowledge receipt. We'll share the information that is coming through through this email address. We will share with the full board so that they are aware of what people's perspectives are. Just want to see if any of our other board members that are on the meeting tonight, Ms. Fleischer, Ms. Friedel, Dr. Rude, see if there's anything that any of the three of you would like to say before we close up. Dr. Rude, go ahead.
Get myself unmuted there. I just want to say thank you to all the parents who spoke on behalf of themselves and their children, and also for the people that were advocating through their various groups. It was really nice to hear all of your perspectives. As a grown-up who still suffers with social anxiety, I totally understand the importance of finding friends and keeping those friendships, and really trying to find continuity in the educational experience. It can be especially hard when you're not in the in-group for whatever reason. So finding ways to be inclusive and to get kids in the in-group, I think, is just a really important thing. So when I'm learning more about redistricting and talking with other board members and with administration, I'll have you in mind, trying to make sure that your kids can have the most continuity that they can going forward so that they can really thrive. I think with my position on the school board, that's what I really want, is for kids to really, reach their absolute best potential and have fun time getting there. So my thoughts are with you. Thank you very much for all of your comments.
Thank you, Dr. Rude. Ms. Fleischer?
Thank you, everyone. I wanted to thank especially Jack and Olivia, the students who came on tonight to express their thoughts. You're the reason why we're here. We do everything in the Board of Ed for you, the students. So thank you so much for really reaching out and taking the time tonight, and also all the parents for sharing your stories, your comments, your experiences. Like Dr. Root said, we really appreciate it. We truly take it to heart. And I appreciate the Zone PTA, CPAG, and especially CHSEPTA for reaching out, and for your organizations to make sure that you reached out to your membership to tell us what you think. So thank you so much for taking the time tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Fleischer. Ms. Friedel?
Hi, thank you. I will keep it very brief, and I just want to echo my colleagues on the board's sentiments. Thank you to the students. Thank you to the parents. As a parent of two children who both have IEPs, I understand. I've lived through it. I lived through it. And sharing those pieces of yourself is very special to us. And we did listen and we did hear. On Tuesday at the committee of the whole meeting, we will be talking about the middle school redistricting, and your voices were a critical piece of this discussion that will happen on Tuesday. So really thank you, thank the students, and everyone stay safe. And if you're driving this evening with the weather coming, but we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Friedel. Thank you to all of our panelists who spent time with us this evening, to the additional district support folks who are online, ready to answer questions or to jump in. We appreciate you all being here. Thank you to everybody that has been on the call and spent time with us, for sharing your thoughts and your perspective. As we said, use that email address, continue to send in your thoughts and your ideas. Tune in on Tuesday evening or watch the broadcast or the recording of the meeting after Tuesday evening. You'll be able to hear and see the discussion that takes place. And again, special thank you to Mr. Plavinsky and to Mr. Holman, our technologists, for again keeping us online and on the air. We're grateful, gentlemen, for what you always do for us. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe.